Hey, it's Ray from Sober Without God, and today we're going to talk about why it's hard to change about religion. And why is it hard to change our mind about our religious beliefs? I used to be a Christian. I was a born again Christian since the age of 5, and I even served as a pastor, have a seminary degree, and for a long time I believed what I believed about God and even in the last just few years I became an evangelical. I became an atheist, and it took me an entire lifetime to come to believe what I believe now. And it was a long, long process. And regardless of your beliefs, whether you're talking about political beliefs or beliefs about religion, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process that we go through in order to change any kind of belief that we have. And that's what we want to talk about today. On this channel, we talk about alcohol use disorder, we talk about religion, but today we're just going to focus on religion. And before I start, I want to let you know that what I talk about from my own viewpoint, and I am not a medical expert in religious trauma or alcohol use disorder. And if you need help in any of these areas, make sure you talk to your primary care physician or you talk to a medical expert before you get help. And make sure that you get the help you need in any of these areas. And so today, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to changing your mind and changing your heart about religion, I want to talk about cognitive biases. Cognitive biases. And we all have cognitive biases. When we're faced with contradictory evidence, evidence that doesn't agree with how our brain works and how the facts fit into our brain, we often reject it because it doesn't conform to our beliefs. And it's called being set in your ways. Has anyone ever told you that you are set in your ways? Or if you ever said that to anybody else? And I think if you ever were to walk into a church and look at a group of people, you would say, those people are so set in their ways because they reject anything that doesn't match up with what they believe. We're all set in our ways to some degree. And I think we would all like to think that we're open minded about a lot of things and we're ready to accept new information. But in a lot of ways, we are not ready for new information. You know, being set in your ways in a lot of ways is a good thing. It helps you process the world, it helps you process information, and it helps you stay in line, and it helps you get through your day. But it is also good to be open to listening to people, and it's good to listen to what others think about different topics, and it's good to have an open and honest conversation with other people. But belief is strong. Belief is our identity and it's who we are. And that's why we often become defensive when we hear an opposing viewpoint. And I remember when I was in seminary or when I was a young pastor and I came across an opposing viewpoint or a tough passage in the Bible, I would not listen to another viewpoint. I would not even bother with it at all. If I saw a difficult passage in the Bible or I heard someone say something that challenged the view that I held on that passage, I would reject it out of hand and I would go straight to my favorite commentator or my favorite theologian or my favorite pastor and to hear what they had to say about it and say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. That must be the correct view. I had a whole library shelf dedicated to difficult passages in the Bible that would help me come into more with my they would help me with my cognitive biases, and I would be able to rationalize what I believed better. See, that's a cognitive biases. If something didn't match with what I believed, then I would help it fit perfectly or better into what my brain said. And that wasn't healthy. I would reject out of hand what someone else said that was difficult with what I understood. So that's one reason that it's hard to change your mind about religion or anything because you don't want to hear what someone else has to say because it might be difficult or it doesn't match up with what you have to say. There's another reason that it's hard to change about religion, and that is emotional resonance. Emotional resonance. So we hold fast to our beliefs and our faith because they have emotional significance for us. And it's tied to what we call our moral compass. especially if you're a believer, you have this personal testimony about how you were saved, about how God saved you over and over again. I had my own personal testimony about how at the age of 5 I was saved, and about how times in my life I prayed and God rescued me, and God did this for me, and God did that for me. And Christians are often told, when you're talking to an unbeliever, the most important part of witnessing to an unbeliever is your personal testimony, because it's hard to argue with a personal testimony. That's why when you watch a television commercial, one of the biggest parts of a television commercial, if they're trying to sell you something, is a personal testimony of a person who has used the product. People are more than likely to respond to a personal testimony on a television ad than they are anything else in that ad. And if someone comes to your door and they start knocking on your door and they're coming to tell you about Jesus or Jehovah or Moroni or whatever God they're coming to tell you about, and start spouting Bible verses at you, it's not going to work. But if someone at work that you know or a family member begins to tell you about, hey, there's this Jesus guy and he came into my heart and he changed my life, and I don't drink anymore and I go to church now and I get along with my wife better now, you're more likely to listen to something like that, and it'll carry a whole lot more weight. That's emotional resonance. And so if you start to begin to weigh your emotional resonance up against the facts of the faith and say, hey, is there objective proof for this faith versus, or is my faith built on emotional resonance? It's more difficult to change your own mind about your religion if you have a perceived emotional connection to it and an invisible deity. I want to thank you real quick for showing up to my channel and for all the new subscribers that I've had lately. I do notice you. I do see you out there. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk about a new exciting development that I have on my channel. And I want to ask you to please hit that like button. It only takes a couple of seconds. Thank you for stopping by today. The last reason it's hard to change about religion is that we have confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. So people tend to filter out opposing arguments, and we undervalue any kind of evidence whatsoever that contradicts our existing beliefs. Like, we will not watch, if a YouTube video pops up about something that we disagree about, we aren't going to listen to it. We will not watch it because it does not agree with what we believe. And we won't pick up a book. If we see a book on a shelf that disagrees with our personal faith or our political ideals, we won't pick it up and we won't even thumb through it, because that's not what I believe. I do want to give props to seminary here. The Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, they challenged us and they gave us books to read by people we did not agree with, by liberal theologians and people outside the faith. They encouraged us to read those, so they thought it would be making us stronger. Now, that's also where some of my doubts began, way back in the late 90s. But I do thank them for giving me the courage and strength to be able to read opposing views. And if you want to be a better person, then have a well-read reading list and a YouTube viewing list, and watch people who don't agree with you, and watch those videos and see, hey, these people don't agree with me. I wonder why they don't agree with me. Or read a book. This person doesn't agree with me. I wonder why they don't agree with me. And travel. Go outside your hometown. Go outside the country. Go find people who don't agree with you and go have conversations with people who don't agree with you. You have a confirmation bias. Challenge your confirmation bias. Listen to other people. And you may still think at the end of the day that they're wrong, or you may even hone the reason that your own beliefs, and you may even hone that a little bit and find out that you're wrong in some areas. It's always good at the end of the day to find truth, no matter where it is. We want to believe as many true things as possible and reject as many false things as possible. I remember, I'll close it up with this story. I remember hearing some time ago about the granddaughter of Fred Phelps. And Fred Phelps was the pastor and leader of Westboro Baptist Church. And if you know Westboro Baptist Church, you know that they are the church in Kansas, I believe, that they would always picket the funerals of the dead soldiers, and they were anti-LGBTQ, and they're loud and they're obnoxious, and they have the signs, and you know who I'm talking about. Well, she was born into the family, didn't have a choice, and she was always on the other end of all the people telling her she's wrong because she was. But one day, a newspaper reporter friended her, and he didn't come at her with, "You're wrong for believing this. You're wrong for being a member of Westboro Baptist Church." He just befriended her and began to treat her like a human being. And over time, that relationship grew, and they began to exchange ideas and started having conversations about topics. And she finally left that church, and she was ostracized for it. When people do change their minds, it's not because they're confronted with, "You're wrong, and here's why you're wrong," and done in a mean manner. They change their minds because they have meaningful relationships with people, and they're able to find a place and a space where they can safely talk about it. And I encourage you to create spaces like that for people. And I encourage you to join spaces like that with people that you don't agree with, and be skeptical about what you believe, and try to help other people be skeptical about what they believe, and read things, watch things, learn things, and begin to understand the things that you believe. And I also want to tell you about what's coming up next on my channel. I'm going to start doing book reviews, and I'm starting with a book series written in the 1990s by a guy named Stuart Woods. And these are they're not trashy, but they're fun. And it's about a detective, and his name is Stone Barrington. And I'm just having fun with it because they're like dime store novels. And I'm going to do these on Saturday. And the detective in them is a dog. He is just a dog. And I had fun reading them, and I'm gonna be a little bit different when I do the book review. But I encourage you, that'll be Saturday morning book review. That'll be coming up soon. But I want to thank you again for showing up today and being a part of this. And I'll see you next time on Sober Without God. So.